Okay, so what we're going to look at now is solving quadratic equations which aren't in standard form. So what we're going to do here is make sure that the equation is in standard form here, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and then we can solve it. So let's have a look at the first one. So first thing I'm going to do here is expand the brackets. Okay, so x squared plus 5x is equal to 6. Then we're going to put everything onto one side, so subtract 6 from both sides. You're going to get x squared plus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. Now, that is in standard form now, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we can go ahead and factorize and solve. So if you remember, we need two numbers which multiply to give negative 6, which is a constant term there. This is a monic quadratic, remember, and two numbers which add to give 5. So you can try and work those ones out, or pause the video if you like to think about it yourself. Numbers should be negative 1 times 6 is negative 6, and negative 1 plus 6 is 5. So now you can go ahead and factorize that. You've got x here, minus 1, and positive 6. And don't forget that is all equal to 0. Okay, you can split that up into two equations. X minus 1 is equal to 0, and x plus 6 equal to 0. So it gives you x is equal to 1, and x is equal to negative 6. And you can check those answers by substituting them back into the original equation. So if you put x equals 1 into this equation, you're going to get 1 times 1 plus 5, which is 6. So 1 times 6 is 6, that works. And if you put in x equals negative 6, you're going to get negative 6 times by negative 6 plus 5. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. And negative 6 times negative 1 is 6. So it works. Alternatively, you could sub it into this equation. Okay, sub both the x values into this equation one at a time, and you should get 0. Right, so either equation will do when you're checking. Now, that question is like 17C question 1 from your textbook. So I'd like you to pause the video now and go to 17C, and I'm going to do questions 1, and you can do every second question. So A, C, E, and all the way up to G. Okay, you can stop at G if you want, 1, A, C, E, G. All right, so pause the video, go to your textbook and do these questions. And then when you finish, come back to the video, unpause it, and you're going to look at 17C question 3. Okay, so for 17C question 3, this example relates to question 3 of the exercise. So have a look. You've got two lots of brackets on either side of the equal sign. A couple of ways we can do this. I guess the standard way is to expand the brackets. So you're going to go 2x times 2x is 2x squared. Then you're going to go x times negative 1 is negative x. Then 3 times 2x is 6x. And then 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Right? And then on the other side, you'll have 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Okay, so we can simplify that a bit. You're going to get 2x squared plus 5x. Okay, negative 1x plus 6x is plus 5x. Minus 3 is equal to, now we're going to have 6x x squared, and then simplify the middle terms. So it'll be negative 8x take 3x is negative 11x. Okay, so negative 11x. And then plus 4. All right. Now, from that point on, you want to get one side 0. Now, I want to do the subtraction, which is going to give me a positive x squared term. So I'm going to subtract 2x squared there and 2x squared here. That's going to give me a positive x squared term, which makes the arithmetic easier. While I'm at it, I will subtract that and add this. Do the same thing to the other side. So what I'm doing here, so I'm making one side 0. So this whole thing will go to 0. Okay, and then 6x squared minus 2x squared is 4x squared. Minus 11x take 5x is negative 16x. And then 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay, that's all equal to 0. So next step is to factorize and solve. So 4 times 7 is 28, so you need two numbers which multiply to give 28, and two numbers which add to give negative 16. Okay, so you can pause the video if you want to try and think what those numbers may be. Should end up with this, negative 14, negative 2, negative 14, and negative 2. So both those numbers satisfy the condition, or the conditions. So now we can split up the middle term. So 4x squared stays how it is. And then we split up negative 16x into negative 14x minus 2x. Okay, and the plus 7 stays as is. Okay, and it's all equal to 0. So we just put it on the end. Now, look at the first pair. We're going to factorize that. 2x outside of 2x minus 7. Now here, you've got a negative as the first term here, negative term. So we're going to take out negative 1, if you like, as a common factor. So it's negative 2x minus 7, because I want the same expression inside the brackets. And if you want, you can put a little 1 there to make that easier. Now, I can factorize that now. So 2x minus 7 is the common factor. And what's left over goes in the second bracket. It's 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, and then we're going to split that up into two equations. So 2x minus 7 is equal to 0. And 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. And then that's going to give me 2x equals 7 here. And then x equals 7 over 2. Okay, then 2x equals 1 over here, and then x is equal to a half. Okay, now that example is similar to question 3 from the text. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to make sure that's copied down, and I want you to go to question 3 now. Pause the video, and you're going to do 17C, question 3. You're going to skip 2 for the time being, and you're going to do A, C, and E. Okay, once you finish those, you've got those correct, you can come back and continue the video. Okay, now these next few examples are similar to the questions in 17C question 2. Okay, so let's have a look at this one here. Now here we've got some fractions. What we want to do first is get rid of the fractions. So we're going to multiply everything by 2, right, to get rid of the denominator. So that means you're going to have x, we'll just write the question out again. I'm going to leave a little bit of room for the multiplication bit. Okay, so we're going to times by 2. Make sure the multiply by 2 is in line with the numerator. We're going to times this by 2 and this by 2. Okay, now the whole point of that is to get rid of the denominator now. That's gone. So we're left with x outside of x minus 3, and then we've got plus 2x equals 2. So no more denominator, which is good. We can now expand the brackets. So you're going to get x squared minus 3x plus 2x equals 2. And then that's going to give you x squared minus x is equal to 2. We've got to put it in the correct form. So put everything to one side. Okay, now this is monic. So you want two numbers which multiply to give the constant term, which is negative 2, and two numbers which add to give the coefficient of x, which is negative 1. All right, so you can pause the video if you want and try and think about what those numbers might be. Okay, so the numbers that you should have found are negative 2 and 1, and negative 2 and 1. So those numbers fit both those equations. All right, so now we can factorize. So put the brackets in, equal to 0. So now I can write that equation down here in factored form. So it's going to be x and x minus 2 plus 1. I can now split that up into two equations. X minus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 1 is equal to 0. And run out of room a little bit here, but let's just write that a little bit higher. There we go. So we'll go x minus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 1 is equal to 0. And that gives me x is equal to 2, and x equals negative 1. Okay. All right. Now copy that down. That's similar to a question in 17C question 2. Let's have a look at the next one. Now again, you've got a denominator here. We want to get rid of the denominator. So what we're going to do is, I'll just write it over here, just create a bit of room. We're going to have an x there, and then so just rewriting the equation here. Now, to get rid of that denominator, we're going to multiply everything by x. Okay, so put an x here. I'm going to put an x here. Rightio. Now you've done that, you can cancel the denominator. That's gone. So x times x is x squared. And then we've got 3x minus 2. And then we want to make one side 0, but we want a positive squared term if possible. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Okay. And that will give us x squared minus 3x is equal to negative 2. And then we want to add 2 to both sides. That will give us x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now, you could have done the negative 3x and the plus 2 in one step. That's fine. Let me just write this bit neater. 3 and x. Okay, so you want, it's monic, so you want two numbers which multiply to give the constant term 2, two numbers which add to give the coefficient of x, negative 3. So you can pause the video if you want and have a think about what those numbers might be. Right? And hopefully you worked out negative 1 and negative 2, negative 1 and negative 2. Now from that point, you can then factorize. Okay, so you've got x and x in the first bracket there. So you're factorizing that equation like this now. That's minus 1 and minus 2. So then we can write down the two equations. X minus 1 is equal to 0. X minus 2 is equal to 0. So you get X equals 1 and X equals 2. Okay, so that's like 17C question 2. And there's one more from question 2 we're going to do. And I'll get you to pause the video and have a go. So here it is. All right. So here we've got two denominators this time. So what we're going to do is multiply by the product of both denominators. So we're going to multiply by 3x. Okay, so let's just do that now. Actually, no, I think the best step here will be to cross multiply, which we could do the multiplication of 3x. I think in this case, we'll cross multiply. So you notice that you've got one fraction equal to another fraction. In that case, cross multiplication is best. Okay, now that means you times that by that and that by that. So we get x outside of x minus 2 is equal to 5 times 3. Okay, which is just 15. So you might as well just put 15 there. Now you can only cross multiply when you've got one whole fraction equal to another fraction. Now expand the brackets. X squared minus 2x is equal to 15. Put the quadratic in standard form, so one side is equal to 0. Right, then you want to factorize. So you want to find two numbers which multiply to give negative 15 and two numbers which add to give negative 2. Okay, so think about what those numbers might be. So we could have, pause the video if you want, have a think about that. Okay, hopefully you end up with negative 5 and 3 and negative 5 and 3. Okay, so now we've got the factorization we can do. So it's x and x, negative 5 and positive 3 is equal to 0. And we can now write the two equations. So we get x is equal to 5 and x is equal to negative 3 is your answer there. Okay, so those three examples are like question 2. So what I'd like you to do now is to pause the video and try 17C, and I want you to do question 2. You can do A. You can do C. And you can do F. 2A, C, and F. That should be similar to the questions that we've done up here. Okay, 2A, C, and F. And if you want a challenge question to do, you can try J as a challenge. Okay. All right, so pause the video and do those questions. All right, now last of all, we're going to look at 17C question 5. Now you notice we've got two denominators here. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by the product of those two denominators. Okay, and that will get rid of the denominator. So let's have a look. So we're going to have x plus 4 on 2. Okay, so I'm going to times that by 2 outside of x minus 3. Now I'm going to have to put brackets around the numerator here. Okay, you'll see why in a minute. And then we've got the other fraction we're also going to put the product of, and multiply that by 2 brackets x minus 3, and that's equal to 1, and we're going to multiply that. So all terms get multiplied by 2 outside of x minus 3. Now, when you do that, you can see that certain things will cancel. So the 2's will cancel here, right? Now if I put brackets around this, that numerator cancels with that denominator. So now if we write down the result of that, we still have x minus 3 and then x plus 4 next to it. Then we have minus, now 3 times 2 is 6, equals, and then 1 times 2, x minus 3 is just 2x minus 3. So we've got rid of all the denominators now. Next thing you've got to do is expand the brackets. So x squared plus 4x minus 3x is plus x there. So if you expand that, you should get the plus x. Minus 12 minus 6 equals, and then 2x minus 6. We can tidy that up a little bit. So you get x squared plus x minus 18 is equal to 2x minus 6. You want to make one side 0. So we're going to add 6, subtract 2x, subtract 2x. Okay, so it's going to give us x squared minus x minus 12 is equal to 0. Now from there, we should be able to factor that. Okay, so it's monic. You want two numbers which multiply to give the constant term, and two numbers which add to give the coefficient of x, which is -1 in this case. So let's try -4 and 3, -4 and 3. So that works. So we can then factorize that. So we're going to get x minus 4, x plus 3, and that's equal to 0. So then you're going to get x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. So you're going to get x equals 4, x equals -3. And that's your final answer. Right, so the relevant questions for that will be question 5. Okay, so you can pause the video if you like, and the relevant questions are 17C. You can do question 5, just A, C, and E. That'll do.